This story is my return. Terry Tempest Williams, July 4th, 1990. Burrowing owls. Lake level, 4,204.70 feet. Great Salt Lake is about 25 minutes from our home. From the mouth of Emigration Canyon where we live, I drive west past Brigham Young standing on top of This Is the Place monument. When I reach Foothill Drive, I turn right, past the University of Utah, and make another right heading east until I meet South Temple, which requires a left-hand turn. I arrive a few miles later at Eagle Gate, a bronze arch that spans State Street. I turn right once more. 1 block later, I turn left on North Temple and pass the Mormon Tabernacle on Temple Square. From here, I simply follow the gulls west, past the Salt Lake City International Airport. Great Salt Lake, wilderness adjacent to a city, a shifting shoreline that plays havoc with highways, islands too stark, too remote to inhabit, water in the desert that no one can drink. It is the liquid lie of the West. I recall an experiment from school. We filled a cup with water. The surface area of the contents was only a few square inches. Then we poured the same amount of water into a large, shallow dinner plate. It covered nearly a square foot. Most lakes in the world are like cups of water. Great Salt Lake, with its average depth measuring only 13 feet, is like the dinner plate. We then added 2 or 3 tablespoons of salt to the cup of water for the right amount of salinity to complete the analog. The experiment continued. We let the plate and cup of water stand side by side on the windowsill. As they evaporated, we watched the plate of water dry up, becoming encrusted with salt long before the cup. The crystals were beautiful. Because Great Salt Lake lies on the bottom of the Great Basin, the largest closed system in North America, it is a terminal lake with no outlet to the sea. The water level of Great Salt Lake fluctuates wildly in response to climatic changes. The sun bears down on the lake an average of about 70% of the time. The water frequently reaches 90 degrees Fahrenheit, absorbing enough energy to evaporate almost 4 feet of water annually. If rainfall exceeds the evaporation rate, Great Salt Lake rises. If rainfall drops below the evaporation rate, the lake recedes. Add the enormous volume of stream inflow from the high Wasatch and Uinta Mountains in the east, and one begins to see a portrait of change. Great Salt Lake is cyclic. At winter's end, the lake level rises with mountain runoff. By late spring, it begins to decline when the weather becomes hot enough that loss of water by evaporation from the surface is greater than the combined inflow from streams, groundwater, and precipitation. The lake begins to rise again in the autumn when the temperature decreases, and the loss of water by evaporation is exceeded by the inflow. Since Captain Howard Stansbury's exploration and survey of the Great Salt Lake, 1852, the water level has varied by as much as 20 feet, altering the shoreline in some places by as much as 15 miles. Great Salt Lake is surrounded by salt flats, sage plains, and farmland. A slight rise in the water level extends its area considerably. In the past 20 years, Great Salt Lake's surface area has fluctuated from 1,500 square miles to its present 2,500 square miles. Great Salt Lake is now approximately the size of Delaware and Rhode Island. It has been estimated that a 10-foot rise in Great Salt Lake would cover an additional 240 square miles. To understand the relationship that exists at Great Salt Lake between area and volume, imagine pouring 1 inch of water into the bottom of a paper cone. It doesn't take much water to raise an inch. However, if you wanted to raise the water level 1 inch at the top of the cone, the volume of water added would have to increase considerably. The lake bed of Great Salt Lake is cone-shaped. It takes more water to raise the lake an inch when it is at high level, and less water to raise it in low-level years. Locals of the Great Basin, of the Salt Lake Valley in particular, speak about Great Salt Lake in the shorthand of lake levels. For example, in 1963,